This is the Footy Talk podcast for your Monday, your daily dose of footy, the latest news, interviews and analysis from the world of AFL. And news, there is plenty. We got the biggest stars to break it down. Jay-Z Clark, of course, in the house, as is the number one real estate agent in Darwin, Abby Holmes.
Good morning. Well, good morning, afternoon. I don't even know where we are on a Monday, but that's normal, isn't it?
That is normal.
That is normal.
Jay, great to see you again.
Hello, Daisy. Are you selling homes in Darwin
Well-
amid all your other commitments?
With a name like Holmes, you can't not be a real estate agent.
Is that right?
Well, look, not many people know that I'm actually a fully licensed real estate agent. So I was selling houses
Side
up
hustle.
in the NT before all the media stuff kind of took off.
Wow.
You
There
know the
go.
beauty of being a real estate agent, Jay?
What
is
is it?
you've got to be good at the gift of the gab. And on Friday night, we didn't see the gift of the gab. We saw the gift of the Gabba to Abby Holmes, who was up there doing special comments for our dear friends there at Channel 7. The lights went out, which
Yeah.
is a huge story in itself. Max Gorn's gone down.
Mm.
But we were left in limbo, the world this is, and you were there and you had to give us updates when there was nothing coming through. It was the greatest display of padding I've ever seen, Abs. Run us through it.
38 minutes.
38 minutes of talking
38 minutes.
absolute tripe.
Can you
just
believe
to
it?
fill.
And apparently I had the only working microphone in Queensland. So
And that's not a good thing.
No. And we lost everything. So obviously JB, BT, the callers, we had Richo and Hodgie up there as well and lost them. So I just could very, very slightly hear my producer just being like, you've got to talk. Just talk, just talk. And I'm like, what about?
It's dark down here, guys.
And that's when I just picked up and said, the lights are out at the Gabba. And then I just spoke about what I could see. So
Yeah.
obviously the iPhone torches all came on, which was pretty epic. The players are all standing around for a good kind of 2-3 minutes not knowing what was happening. And then, we were just kind of feeding the information as we got it. So what a crazy, crazy turn of events, though.
Mental. And from the AFL's point of view, the information did seem like it was coming through pretty sporadically and not overly defiant in anyone actually knowing what the hell went on in this situation, Joe.
No, it was a bit unclear, wasn't it, when they were going to come back out? And in the end, as Melbourne fought back, Brisbane quite filthy that they didn't get to train or come out and warm up and practice. Fags is dirty about that.
Well, I was obviously on the ground when that happened and we were talking, Melbourne came out and it would have been 3.5 minutes maybe before the Lions did. So obviously Fags has come out and said they were told to stay in the rooms, but then when they saw that the Ds were out there, he was a bit dirty on it because they did come out a little bit flat after that,
If
didn't
Fags
they?
saw the D's warm up, though, he wouldn't have missed much. It was very pedestrian watching it. They weren't exactly doing lane work and warming up, just having a kick to kick and seeing what was going on. Was there a chance that the game was going to be called off?
Yeah, well, if there's an hour, once it ticks
So
past...
purely time.
Yeah, so what we were told from the AFL officials is that they were going to go down into the rooms and have a stall in play for a minimum of 20 minutes, but then a max of 60. So if we got to 60 minutes and there was still no, I guess, idea as to when the lights were coming on, the game would have been called and the scores would have stood.
Okay, so if you get past half-time, just going forward, hopefully it doesn't happen. If the game's past half-time, there's a winner. If it's before half-time, it's a rematch. I'm asking questions that you don't know the answer to. Look, that's story for another day. Anyway, we move on. You were absolutely brilliant. Full credit to...
Thanks.
Where do you want to go from here, Jay? The Pies, the Dogs, the Saints, the Hawks.
So
There
much
is
to
news
talk about.
everywhere.
I'm a glass half full guy, so let's start with not only the hottest ticket in town, and that's there's Daisy raises his ass half
I'll
glass
raise me ass.
full of water. Hey, Collingwood is playing a brand of footy. I mean, what's amazing about this is we all, 3 weeks ago, we all think about our ladder predictions. We all thought, the Pies can't do it again. It was a bit of a fluke last year. They won so many close games. Maybe they'll be sliding. Everyone was tipping them to slide. And they've come out and gone bang, Geelong, and then punched Port Adelaide in the face. And they've got a second-year kid. He's played, 25 games, Nick Dacos, the son of one of the greatest Collingwood players to ever kick a Sherrin from the boundary line. And he's having a Chris Judd, a Joel Selwood-style second season. He's now equal favourite for the Brownlow medal. And teams are... wondering not only how do they stop Nick Dacos, because the tag was futile on Saturday from Jones at Port Adelaide, but also now, how do you stop this juggernaut? Like, how do you stop? What's the kryptonite here for Collingwood, Daisy? Opposition teams are looking at them going, they're so incredibly quick, they're so offensive, they're so attacking. You have to go into a game against Collingwood knowing that you're having to kick at least 90 points to win. It's the most intimidating task in football at the minute, and they're just incredibly fun to watch.
They're awesome at the minute. They are genuinely Hollywood, as we touched on. They are the bright lights. When you get there, you want to watch them. I don't know how you beat them. We've seen teams try and stifle them, but their ball movement and their game plan is so bold, they just continue coming. So they don't care if they give 1 or 2 up on turnover. They'll back themselves to get the next 3 or 4 in a row, and at times they do that. They got 8 in a row on the weekend, I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know. I'm still not sure if going into the game trying to have a shootout with them is the best result ever, because they're better at that than most teams at the minute. They're unbelievably defensive. It is incredible what Craig McRae has done from 2 years ago after a big fire sale of talent. We're all going, what's going on? The coach has changed. The president's changed. There was a lot of uncertainty. And then all of a sudden, they are the best team to watch in the competition with the best young player in the competition.
I tell you what, I think I'm a Pie supporter. It's a big statement.
You're not the only one, though. Everybody is now second favourite team, Collingwood.
And that's the thing.
Incredible.
I think we all want to be adopted by Craig McRae. He's one of the greats.
Put it up there, yeah.
Yeah. And, have a beer with Darcy Moore as well. And I think speaking from the position of a boundary rider and being kind of amongst it at ground level on game day, it's hard to kind of put it into words, but simply the vibe, right? And just the morale between the players, the coaches. I look at Richmond of 2017 and they had it. Like you could actually feel it.
The brothers bond sort of vibe.
Yes, you can feel it. Whereas now I'm looking at the Pies going, this is the team that has that, 10 out of 10, 110%. And it's very, very special to watch.
And we'll talk about Hawthorn a little bit later, but I sort of thought the one weakness Collingwood had previously was the contested footy a bit. They weren't a great first possession team. They were getting beaten around the clearance last year. Then they go and get a bloke called Tom Mitchell in a trade for pick 27 off the top of my head.
Brownlow medalist they got for chips.
A bag of peanuts.
Yep.
16 contested possessions he had at the weekend. He dominated Port Adelaide in there, not in a dominant or explosive way, but in a sort of death by 1,000 cuts way around the football. So now you look at Collingwood and it's like, wow, with De Goey and him, they're really strong in that in the cauldron there. And that was possibly the one issue or the number one issue they had to fix. So we haven't been talking about Tom Mitchell a lot, but when I look at his contested possession rate and the way he feeds Nicky Dacos on the outside and Josh Dacos, I think, wow, what an incredible trade for the Collingwood Footy Club.
How are you feeling if you're Tom Mitchell as well? Obviously, we're going to get into Hawthorn in a little bit, but Hawthorn got rid of a lot of their senior talent and experience.
And against a lot of their wills as well.
Absolutely.
This is where we're going.
So for Tommy Mitchell to go over to the Pies, one of the the biggest clubs in the land, and to be playing and performing the way that they are in front of massive crowds at the MCG, he'd be licking his lips.
Absolutely. Doing more with less he is, which is brilliant to see because we know how good he can be. While we're touching on the Hawks, they were horrible again against the Sydney Swans. I thought it was interesting what their coach was saying about they had some honest conversations after the game in and around the character and trying to bring what they wanted to for long enough, and they weren't able to do that.
Spirit
for long enough was the quote. I find that hard to swallow. If I was a player and I heard my coach peddling that out, and again, you don't really know the conversations behind closed doors, but what I'm hearing in the press is that it's almost a little bit of, well, you blokes take responsibility for it. I've been a part of getting rid of all the players that would have made us competitive for a lot longer in this game, but unfortunately it falls on you guys, so have your conversations. Right now, their list isn't good enough to compete at the level with 14 or 15 of the sides.
So smashed by Essendon last week, 81-point loss to Sydney at the weekend. We know the Swans are in premiership mode or a top 4 side. They're always going to get belted in this one. Now, you look at their list profile, the Hawks, they knew what they were coming into this year. They ripped the Band-Aid off. They cut all the senior players. And now in that midfield, tell me if I'm wrong here, guys, it's Newcombe and Warple or bust. If they can win the hard footy, but then forward of the ball, the back end, they were beaten in the width. Like, this is going to be a really tough year for Hawthorn fans. And you wonder, who are they going to beat? Well, I actually think they are the worst team in the competition by some margin at the moment. I think that's the reality for Hawthorn fans. So Sam says, we weren't trying hard enough. I think it's a really good point, Daisy, because they were
try as much as you want. If you just
got
far less talent in the opposition, you get the result you get.
And just the way in which Sydney were easily, transitioning the ball from D50 to forward 50, it did look like a training run. And from a Hawthorn perspective, just the handballs either laterally or behind. And then Sydney's pressure was just elite early in that game as well. So they were just suffocating the Hawks. And then on transition, absolutely dominating inside 50. But Yeah, it was a bit disheartening to see the Hawks come out and perform that way. But in saying that, where is the leadership out there on the ground and the experience?
They get a chance against North this week.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. This is
Clarko Cup.
This is the big grudge match of the season.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Sam Mitchell versus Alistair Clarkson. They're going to try and pretend like it's not a thing. It's a thing. It's a big thing,
everybody.
If North Melbourne go on to win this by 30, 40 odd points,
Yes.
what is now the? And again, this is the big looking into the future, the crystal ball, if you will. Where do the Hawks go? Because North Melbourne have improved, the Hawks haven't.
No, well, they've gone backwards. I think they're headed for the number 1 draft pick. I think
Harley Reid.
I think it's pretty clear. Yeah, I think it's not tanking, but because it's been taken out of the players' hands in terms of the list decisions that were made last season. They're an incredibly young side, and North Melbourne. You talked about feathers and plucking and strut and all that sort of stuff. If Clarko notches that victory up against Hawthorn, he will be walking like this.
How animated was he, by
It's
the way, on the
brilliant to
weekend?
see. Yeah, we'll
The
move
holding
on
the
to that
ball.
one. North Melbourne, obviously, against Fremantle. Controversy at the end, but North Melbourne now 2-0.
Amazing.
2 rounds, they've won as many games as they did in 23 last season.
Who would have thought?
Not me.
The Bombers, the Saints, and the Roos, all 2-0 heading into round 3. But that performance was incredible. You know, going over to the West and taking on either West Coast or Freo at home is a tough challenge for anyone. But I was so impressed watching them on the weekend, and a very controversial finish.
Wasn't ever.
Very controversial.
This is why Jay-Z's got the chest out, the
Said,
shoulders
"Have a look
back,
at him."
the feathers there. He's just news everywhere,
Yeah.
and you are a news nuffy, and you love it.
What do we think
I thought it
on
was the
that
right
final?
call. I think the umpires, good on them. They stood up to a home crowd. Normally in the West, right, the noise of affirmation would have been easy.
Yeah.
The Fremantle fans get up, say, ball, deliberate or whatever.
Give it. Yeah.
Yes, and the umpires made a courageous decision favouring the away side, and it was a line ball call. Like, I've watched it 10 times. I still can't work out, like it's that close a call. So I think the umpires in the moment did a really good job. Questions over Freo, though, and this Luke Jackson trade, we talked a lot about it last year, guys, $800,000 a year. Is it? Tell me if I'm wrong here, but Fremantle seem to have 2 number 1 rucks on their hand.
They do.
Sean Darcy looks like a number 1 ruck, and Luke Jackson looks like a number 1 ruck who, when he goes forward, sort of struggles to have too much of an impact. So they say, well, but he's like Mark Butzars, he can play in the midfield and run and do all this other, play like a midfielder. Well, but Justin Longmuir doesn't want to play him like that. He wants to play him as a key forward ruck, and it just means that Darcy and Jackson aren't working, and Fremantle have been very slow and stodgy with their scoring. Their one wood is their defensive, Daisy, but do they have to? Is this a club that has to develop other scoring gears? How are they going to compete with Collingwood, the Fremantle Footy Club?
Well, we've seen already that Rory Lobb is probably a bigger loss than we assumed at the time. Although he only kicked the 30-odd goals last year, he at least straightened them up. And then if you do have a Darcy down there or a Jackson, they're taking the second best defender.
Madonna.
They go down at the minute and they get the best genuine defender. That both of them don't have a lot of forward craft. They just rely on being tall and agile and somewhat of an athletic build. So any decent defender who's, and we're talking they're tall, but defenders only probably giving up 6-7 centimetres and a little bit of weight. They're good enough with their craft, the defenders, to manoeuvre them around and make sure they have no impact because they don't know where to go unless it's a bus stop lead, kick it to me in the goal square. There's just not enough reward for, I guess, output and effort from those big guys. So I said it yesterday, I think we really need to find a way, if we're Fremantle, to get these guys involved in your game plan. Get them involved in offence, get them involved in your defence, because they're too good of players to be having as much or as little impact as they are.
And we know that these relationships can take a little bit of time to
Work out.
not all of them are Gawn and Grundy that have just hit the ground running and, can dominate the way that they have. But there was plenty of talk yesterday on Sean Darcy, and many people out there are saying he'll be looking for a new home at the end of this year, which I think
to
is...
Geelong, is that the...
Well, if you're another club, you're claws in, aren't you? Because they're all talking about, like we're talking about, this isn't working.
It's not
I wonder
working.
if Darcy wants another opportunity. It's not necessarily the club saying, the players saying, I want out. It'll be other clubs now, like Geelong, who need that next generation ruckman going, hey, mate, what do you think about this opportunity? So they'll be trying to wedge in those cracks.
Do we all think they can turn around, though? Because I certainly do.
I do.
I'm not giving up on them just yet.
And look at the last quarter yesterday. Like that was a very spirited effort and an almost unlikely forward in Jager O'Meara. Nearly got him across the line. So, they lose that one, a tight game. I certainly think that their midfield haven't fired the way that we are expecting them to. And, we know what Sarong and Brayshaw are capable of.
Yep.
It just hasn't worked the first 2 rounds. So I do expect Fremantle Dockers to respond.
A team in a similar boat to the Fremantle Dockers is the Western Bulldogs. Saturday night footy came up against Ross Lyons Saints, who were solid enough against Freo the week before.
Yeah.
I think we all had expectations to go to that one after the Dogs got absolutely trounced by the Demons in round 1, going, this is their opportunity.
Yep.
They rock up tonight,
Yep.
they flex their muscle, they get hard, they get tough, they roll up their sleeves, they get the ball, they flick it around, and they expose the Saints. It was not the case.
Oh, and you look at the 2 midfields on paper and you think that Western Bulldogs should absolutely dominate this game out of
The forward line v the back line.
all of it. So they come into this round 3 game, the Western Bulldogs, the Josh Dunkley Cup, up against the Brisbane Lions. Like, historically, if you start the season 0-3, you don't play finals. Sydney was able to do it a few years ago. Other than that, 0-3, very difficult to come back from. So it is all on the line at Marvel Stadium on Thursday night. And I just wonder, Daisy, like how does he re-energise, reignite this group, Abby? Like in 6 days' time, does he do something different? How does he get the midfield firing? Like, they are the biggest disappointment of the season for mine, the Bulldogs. And Joey Montagna said something really interesting yesterday, Daisy. He said they're going sideways. They're going lateral too much. They've got to be more direct in line with some of the other teams are going. What's your take?
Oh, I think that they have still the cattle to play that exciting brand of footy. For some reason, they're just not. They're going
I agree.
laterally, and then their forwards have to. It sort of disconnects them. They end up 80 metres away from the ball. Then they shift it the other way, and then the forwards are doing big leads across centre half forward. You're not playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
You've got really good midfield. Bailey Smith's an unbelievable runner in there. You've got Bontempelli, who's one of the best players in the comp. You need to play the modern brand and to your strengths. If I had been the coach of Bevo, I think it would have almost been lock the doors, roll the Eskies in sort of areas. I think that's slightly an old school approach. And
Work it out, fellas. Work it out.
Well, and sometimes that's it. You just need to go, look, this ain't working. Let's just have a good time. There was a big talking point out of this, and unfortunately, racism has raised its ugly head again, Abs. Really disappointing. Social media, one, but also at the ground for Jamara Ugelhagen.
Yeah, I'm shattered about this. As a society and a community, how are we still talking about this? And Jamara Ugelhagen racially vilified at the game on Saturday night, and it just breaks my heart. You know, for me personally, I've got a couple of Indigenous nephews. They are my entire world. They are 5 and 3. Living the dream up in Darwin. They have absolutely no idea what racism is. But somewhere, what breaks my heart is that somewhere along their little journeys, oh God, I'll get emotional about it, they're going to be exposed to this. And they don't know anything about it, and it just breaks my heart that we're still in today's day and age, 2023, having to educate people around how bad this is and how awful it is to our Indigenous, population here in Australia.
Life ban is a fair shout.
100%.
Don't
It's
let that
not
person back
okay.
into the football, and even to the point of, I'm not sure what you can do from a legal point of view, but a forced educational process of going through and actually learning about the words that you're saying and understanding how wrong this is. So to everyone out there who will be attending the footy, and 99.9% of people going along are doing the right thing. If you are in that 0.1, be better.
If there's one thing I'm slightly encouraged about, and well said, Abby, one thing I'm encouraged about is the quick response from the clubs and the AFL. Like, it was just immediate and it was really strong. So calling that out in these sorts of moments, which are heartbreaking, it's the one thing we can stick to, can't we? If you hear it, if you see it, jump all over it.
Absolutely. Very well said. This weekend is going to be a massive game. St Kilda, we touched on, very good again.
Yes.
The Bombers, 2-0.
Unbelievable.
St Kilda now go against the Bombers at the MCG, which is rare air. 150th year celebration stuff. This is going to be massive.
Unbelievable. And no one in their right mind would have picked these two teams
No.
to be
Would have had
undefeated.
1,000,000 to 1.
Honestly, it is extraordinary. Well done, Brad Scott. He's stiffened them up. What I've loved is the defence, right? This team has been pox at defending for a decade, maybe 2 decades. That they are much more organised and stronger behind the ball. Brendan Zerk-Thatcher has had his best start to a season.
He was unbelievable on Ben King.
Yeah, and even without these injuries, they're missing Cox, they're missing Reid. They've been missing Stringer. They've been fantastic. And Zach Merritt, he looks like he's on track for an All-Australian season. He's been selfless. He's been desperate in his defensive acts, and I think he's shown true leadership, a bloke who's been maligned over the time. So it's been great. I just wonder, without Jack Steele abs, he's a. Like, how did he play with a broken collarbone?
I know.
Like,
First and
hands
foremost,
with
the
you at
man
the
of
end of the
steel,
game.
Yes.
literally.
Yes.
I offered him my left hand. He said, no, I'm right, and threw out the right paw at me as I did the on-ground interview with a broken collarbone.
That's his shoulder. Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
And
He
as
doesn't care.
Ross said as well, he'll go into surgery. They're saying 4 weeks. He's like, he'll get back in 3.
Yep.
He'll get back.
Man of steel.
Yeah.
So, but he will be an important plug. That midfield is already a little bit thinner, and then losing him will be really tough for them. But, hey, Ross the boss, he's
Can't
a
wait for
genius.
that one.
He certainly has been. That's a good start for us. You're listening to the Footy Talk podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Listener, please hit the like button and leave us a review or rating. New episodes every day at lunchtime. Coming up, Jay-Z, you're going to throw some headlines at us.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant last week.
Thank you.
This is a Footy Talk podcast. Jay, you
Yes.
came to us last week with the new idea of throwing some headlines at us, which we just sort of saw through and decided that this is just you trying to get us to do a job for you. But you want it again, so we're happy to play along. Give them to us, please. Your 3 best.
Some are going to be serious. Some are going to be not so
Like,
serious.
I
All
like
right,
this.
Daisy. So don't get all over me. But I'm not sure. It's probably the greatest movie of all time. But I think this is a little bit obvious. No, mate. I mean, St Kilda starts of the season. Ross the boss. He's been absolutely extraordinary. Job for life last week. I think the Herald Sun headline on St Kilda this week is Lion King. You know the song. Hey ya.
Boss.
How do you think I went? We've watched it 1,000 times.
Hopefully we can get the audio put over that bit there so you can just be seen to be
He's
dancing along to it. Who is?
Yes.
Well, if Ross is the Lion King,
Yes.
Mufasa, who does he then? Is that the Lion King?
Oh, the Simba.
Yeah, who's Simba?
Who is Simba? Mateus Philippou.
Oh, yes.
So Ross holding Mateus up like this to the hordes of all the
Yes.
people, all the
Who
fans.
needs King and Membry,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You've got Caminiti and
That's
Filippo.
right. Yes. Who was meant
Caminiti.
to be waiting tables, Anthony Caminiti this
I
year.
love that story.
Studying
Charcoal
engineering.
Grill on the hill.
How
Just
good.
a brilliant institution. So
And-
get there if you can.
In saying that, we would welcome back King and Membry. We love you guys, but
Yeah.
Yes.
we've got
Good
some
luck
pretty
getting
handy.
a spot at the moment.
Yep.
And he is a dude who is enjoying himself. You
Yeah.
just see him high-fiving around the boundary line. Anyway, first up, Lion King.
Lion Kong.
Now, I'm a glass half full, guys. I said, but this second one is a little bit more negative. Lost dogs.
Oh.
You know, the kennel. They don't know what they're doing. We touched on it
And
before,
you're thinking
Daisy.
like a missing poster?
Who let the dogs out?
Yes, Luke Beveridge.
Baha, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully we'll
Who?
You don't need the audio. That
Okay.
one was heaps
So
better.
that, and if they lose on Thursday night, it will really blow up. They did re-sign him. Was that the right call? Luke Beveridge?
I think the players still really like what he's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still not writing him off yet. I think
Okay.
there's enough there. They just have to figure it out at the moment.
I agree.
There's-
Bevo's the right man for the job.
Okay, I'm putting the cart before the dog at
Yep.
the moment.
Yep.
Cart before the horse.
Yeah, that's
And my third headline
Fine.
is Tricky Nicky Dacos. He is gonna be. Is he better? Can he be better than his dad?
Yes, he certainly can be.
Yes.
He's got the same trick bag, plus possesses probably a bit more speed and ability to play up the field too. So
Yep.
I know it's a massive call.
Give him the Brownlow already, I say.
Just hand it over.
But do you know
Equal
what I
fella.
loved? And I
What?
said this to Keegs when we were watching on the
Yep.
weekend. Josh Dacos has obviously been in the system for a little bit longer than his brother, right? Great player.
Yep.
But I feel like as soon as his brother came on the scene, it elevated him as
Yes.
well. He's
Sibling
like,
rivalry.
I'm not letting my brother
Yeah.
take all the headlines, all the heat. I'm gonna lift.
Rivalry. I reckon it's a loving. They can't
Yeah.
stop hugging each other.
Yeah.
Those two.
Tricky Nicky.
Eh.
Is there anywhere else you could have gone with that?
No, yeah,
Tricky
Nicky,
Nicky's
you're
a good
so
one.
fine.
Hey, you're so fun. You blow my mind.
Hey,
Hey, Nicky.
Yeah.
And he's a good-looking man
He's a
too,
rooster.
isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He walked past me on the boundary line. He's a good-looking man, so that's good, and we applaud him for his magnificent start to the season. But he will be up on posters, on bedroom walls, all around Melbourne.
Yeah.
Just one last newsy one before we
Yes.
get out of here, because we have comprehensively
Haven't we?
broken down the weekend's
Yes.
footy. Nathan Broad
Oh, yep.
will be a big talking point.
Yep.
You are the man when it comes to the tribunal. 100% strike rate, Abby, which is unbelievable. Doesn't miss.
Haven't got one wrong
Okay.
not for a long time.
All
And so he said yesterday he'll be off to the tribunal, and he is. He has apologised for this. And when you do apologise nice and early, sometimes you do get a little week or two discount. It will be minimum 3 matches. Be unsurprised to see 4 as the AFL really takes a hardline stance on these dangerous tackles and the head impact. Young Adelaide Crow, we feel for him. Concussed in the incident. We'll miss the showdown this week, which is huge. So Nathan Broad, it's got to be really clear to the league and to the players, Daisy, that you can't do these dangerous tackles, which slams players' head into the ground. Do you think the whole playing cohort will take notice of this?
Well, you would have thought after round one, you'd be silly to lay a bump. They caught on to that pretty quickly. You'd now be silly this week if you got in that position to sling someone and followed through with it.
Yep.
Bit of a brain fade from Brody.
And Brody knew straight away, didn't he?
he
You
did.
could see it in his face. Obviously, Parnell stayed down on the ground for a significant amount of time, but you just knew he
He's
was
not
shattered.
a dirty player.
No,
Nathan
not at
Broad.
all.
You
Not at
consider
all.
him a very fair ball player.
And a great man.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, that has been the Footy Talk podcast for your Monday. If you got any questions for Joey and Rui tomorrow, get us on Instagram, footytalk_pod, or TikTok at footytalkpod. It's been a massive show, Jay.
It has. And if you're eyeing off any sort of Darwin properties or you're thinking about a Northern Territory ranch up there in Kakadu or something like that,
Hit me up.
Abby's Instagram, she'll be all over it. She's the person in the know. So
For 25% commission, she will do anything. It's been an awesome edition. Have yourselves a great Monday. Joey and Rui up tomorrow on the Footy Talk podcast.
Bye.